and welcome back to another episode of Pro Dignity No Doubt. I am your hostess, Nicole Smith, and today's episode is one, I'd say it's challenging, but most of our conversations really are, but it's absolutely necessary. I feel like it may be even one of the most necessary ones we've done to date because of the cultural prevalence of it. But essentially, what we're going to discuss is two deeply cultural narratives that most people really never connect, but we should. And these two narratives are going to be about porn culture and human distinction and how both are being used to erode our understanding of what it means to be human. So essentially, it's more than that. We're going to draw a line in the sand because I want to be very clear. A clear moral distinction between instinct and identity, between what we can do as humans and what we ought to do as humans. So essentially, let's just start with what we all know, but rarely say out loud. Porn culture is a dignity crisis, but it's in disguise. It's not about sex, it's about value. It's about what we believe a human body is worth. And more specifically, it's about how we've been taught to see men and women not as image bearers, but actually objects of consumption. We often say porn degrades women, and while it does, I believe what we don't talk about enough is that men are actually the first to be dehumanized in that equation. Because at its root, porn tells men that they are nothing more than their urges, that they're designed fundamentally animalistic, and that the mastery over their own body, their own eyes, their own minds is not just difficult, but it's actually unnatural. And if they fail to control themselves in really negative ways that can often be associated around pornography, including buying ladies or exploiting ladies, it's just biology, right? It's just a natural timeline of events. But the reality is, the lie that underpins porn is the idea that human beings are just highly evolved mammals, that we don't have to answer to a moral code because we're driven by instinct. And in fact, it's natural for men to look, for women to perform. It's natural to consume what arouses you. And natural does not mean moral. Like, we need to really lay that out there. Just because something is natural does not mean that it's moral. And that leads us to the second half of the conversation, which is essentially human distinction. Or are we simply just animals? Because if we are, then maybe porn makes sense. Maybe violence does too. Maybe abortion, infanticide, exploitation, all of that can be justified under the banner of instinct. And if we are more than animals, if we are moral beings that are made in the image of God, then none of that actually holds. So let's just give an example. I've given this example in one of the episodes of the past. I can't remember which one. It may have been the last one, but maybe been the one before. I don't know. But it's the example of the male otter. So in the wild, they've been observed raping and even killing female otters during the mating ritual. And in the natural world, that's actually instinct. It's not rape, it's not murder, because it's about reproduction. And there is no morality at all involved. But if a human man were to commit the exact same act, we don't call it mating. We call it rape. We call it murder. Why? Because human beings have a conscience, because we can conceive of justice, and that the other person on the other side of that violence is not actually an object. They're actually a soul of equal moral significance. And this is exactly what porn culture tries to erase. It reduces people to the sum of their physical parts. It reduces women to consumables that can be leveraged for pleasure and profit. But it also reduces men to something less than human, a body without restraint, without responsibility, without purpose, without purpose beyond pleasure, And they're being leveraged for both pleasure and profit. And when we strip away the responsibility of a human to be more than just instinct, we actually strip away dignity, our distinctiveness, our value, and inherent value as human beings. Porn culture is I would argue, one of the most successful dehumanization campaigns in modern history. It has normalized violence. detached sex from relationship. It has turned intimacy into entertainment. It has trained generations to see that lust is simply an inevitable part of the human experience and that people are disposable. It's not intentional on the people that are on the consuming end of it, but that's what it is. It's also linked to the trafficking industry. Again, like kind of noted that at the beginning of the episode, but because essentially if there's demand, then there is exploitation. And I know we often don't want to draw that line, the people that consume or participate, because there are a lot of people that are actively participating willfully of their own accord. But there's also, like I said, supply and demand issues. There is exploitation. It's natural. And yeah, honestly, we could do an entire episode on that. In fact, I probably will, but we'll leave that for another day. But now let's just go back and connect instinct to identity. In nature, animals operate an impulse. They don't consider consequences. They do not restrain their power out of compassion. They do not act against their urges for the good of another. But humans, like we can, and we're made to, in fact. To be human is to choose restraint and not compulsion. To be human is to love, not to consume, and to recognize the divine in another and to respond accordingly. And that's why we say humans are image bearers of God. Me as a Christian, that's what I believe. We are all made in the image of God, and not because we always act like it. It's very clear we don't, but because we have the capacity to do so. And we have a moral imagination that other animals, some humans don't always act on that moral reality, that responsibility that we all have. But we can actually conceive of sacrifice where animals cannot. And we can say no to instinct where animals cannot. And that's not repression, it's redemption. It's a good thing. It's a wonderful thing. And when men are told that porn is just visual stimulation, they're being lied to. It's a soul distortion at its root. It warps how men see women. It warps how they see themselves, honestly. Again, at the root, it's telling them they're nothing more than their urges. But they also affects how they see women. It fractures their ability to bond with women. It numbs their capacity for actual intimacy. There's so much research on this, and it's not innocent and it's not neutral. And when women are told that their power is in their desirability, that being wanted is the same as being valued, they're being robbed. They're being taught to trade their sacred worth for shallow attention. And the deeper tragedy, we then can ask, why are women so anxious, so exhausted, so self-conscious? When the culture they're being raised in sells their body, ignores their soul, and then are being told that that's empowerment. And myself, as a young girl growing up, that was something that I myself battled with. But also, I have 2 young daughters. I don't want them to get that message come across. So what do we do with all of this? Okay, so this is all the action items where we take from here. First, what do we do? First, we tell the truth. Humans are not animals, period. They're not. And there's a necessity in defining that humans are not animals. Again, that's the source of justice. That's a source of compassion. We are not the sum of our physical parts. We are more than our instincts. And porn is not just this harmless outlet. It's actually a cultural cancer that is redefining desire and destroying dignity. Second, we must restore the standard. We must stop pretending that moral restraint is oppressive, that we teach that masculinity is not about dominance, it's about discipline, it's about protection, it's a beautiful thing. That femininity is not about performance, but it's about presence, about sacrifice, about protection. That sexuality is not a playground. It is a sacred gift meant to bond, not to broadcast. In the era of the OnlyFans, yes. And when we reclaim the narrative, we remind ourselves and others that being human means more, not less. More responsibility, depth, beauty, weight, purpose. Because unlike animals, we are made in the mirror of our Creator in order to love like Him, serve like Him, protect like Him, not to prey on the weak, not not to devalue ourselves into mere instinct. And I really want to make this clear. It's not about shame. This is all about gaining freedom, freedom from the compulsion, consumption, a way to choose better, just better for yourself, better for those that you love in your life. So if you're listening today and you feel stuck in the porn culture or numb because of it, please, I want you to hear this. I know it seems very simple, but you are not an animal. You are not your urges. You are not what you've done. You are an image bearer. You are powerful and you are cherished. And if you are someone who is being exploited, objectified, or diminished because of porn, I want you to know you're not forgotten either. You're seen and you're worthy, and your worth as a person, it's never been up for debate, even if somebody has put it up for debate. And at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves, do we want to build a society where people are ruled by instinct, or do we want a society where dignity is defines every interaction, is the root of justice, is the root of compassion? And that's why we say pro dignity, no doubt, to be pro dignity with no doubt, because we are more than mammals. We are moral beings, and our future is actually depends on it. Remembering that basic truth in every aspect of our life. So if you believe in this message, I invite you to support our work. Like anything, it requires monetary resources in order for us to get this message out to places where it's being silenced, because porn is a big moneymaker, and as with anything that's exploitation. And we'd really like you to join us at dignitydefense.org and hopefully consider even being a monthly partner, even if it's like $10 a month. That would actually make a massive difference. That money also will allow us to work hand in hand with those in our communities that are really struggling. We actively work with trafficked women and also families that have gone through troubling diagnosis with their families. We stand with them one-on-one. We use our personal experiences of struggle, those that have been trafficked, those that have worked in the sex industry, been raised in the sex industry, have had a child with disabilities themselves, also individuals that have had abortions. We really try to, as an organization, stand hand in hand and really exemplify this concept of pro-dignity, no doubt. That not only are we speaking about this in our everyday life and broadcasting this message, but also actually doing it in real life. Because what does it mean when we speak, but we don't act? And actually, it's a really interesting story. I was actually out with my daughter at Target the other day, and one of the cashiers had just literally randomly brought up, what do we do about the homeless? And my oldest daughter like pipes up. She's like, well, I made a bunch of homeless packs, and they're like these big Ziploc bags full of like blankets and gum and water, and that you can hand out to a homeless person. And if should you come across them, something that would enrich their lives and bring them joy, So the lady was like, yes, right. You got to do something, even if it's small. Yeah. You don't have to do everything, but do something and live it out in your life, because you have value, but the people around you do too. And because everyone deserves to be seen and cherished and to be known, to be dignified. So again, come back for another episode soon, and talk to you soon.